Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. We've got another brand new interesting story to share with you today, so let's begin. My name is Lucas, and this is the story of how I learned the hard way that sometimes the person you love the most can take you for granted until it's too late. Sophie and I met in our early 20s. Back then, we were inseparable, one of those couples that people looked at and said, yeah, they're made for each other. We had that kind of love that felt effortless. Late-night drives, deep conversations, just two people completely lost in each other. When we got married, it felt right. We had dreams, big ones. Traveling, building a life together, maybe even starting a family down the road. And for a while, everything was perfect. But, life happens. I was building my business from the ground up, putting in long hours, making sacrifices. But no matter how busy I got, Sophie was always my priority. I made time for her. Whether it was small surprises, random date nights, or just sitting down and talking after a long day, I always made sure she knew she mattered. And at first, she appreciated it. She was proud of me, supportive, and my biggest cheerleader. But slowly she started changing. At first it was little things, complaining that she wanted more me time, saying she needed to focus on herself. And honestly, I supported that. We all need space to grow. But then it became something else. She started talking about putting herself first, and at first I thought she meant self-care, like working out, reading more, and doing things that made her happy. But that's not what she meant. What she really meant was doing whatever she wanted, regardless of how it affected our marriage. She stopped trying. She didn't care about our plans. She barely even asked about my day. But at the same time, she still expected me to treat her like she was the most important person in the world. It was like she wanted all the benefits of marriage without having to actually be a wife. At first, I told myself that this was just a rough patch. Every marriage has ups and downs, right? So I did what any loving husband would do. I tried harder. I avoided conflicts as much as I could. If something upsets me, I will first try to talk about it. But if it gets to a point of escalation instead of resolution, I will swallow it down instead of arguing. I started surprising her with gifts, little things I knew she liked, flowers, perfume, even that expensive handbag she had been eyeing for months. Anything to remind her that I still cared, that I was still here. But none of it made a difference. She'd thank me sometimes, but there was no real emotion behind it. No genuine excitement, no appreciation, just a half-hearted smile before she moved on to something else, usually her phone. When I heard her say she needed space, that she needed to find herself, at first I didn't question it. I thought, okay, maybe she's just figuring things out. So I gave her the room she asked for. I stopped trying to pull her close. I let her go out more, let her have her nights out, let her do whatever she felt she needed. But months later, this doesn't help. She became more and more self-absorbed, like she was the main character in some kind of story where I was just a background character, someone who was there to serve her, not to be loved by her. She started acting like she deserved better, like she was settling by being with me. And I'll be honest, that hurt. I watched the woman I fell in love with slip further and further away, because she convinced herself that she could do better than me. When you love someone who doesn't value you, it messes with your head. You start questioning yourself, wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you're the problem. I spent so many nights staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what changed. What did I do wrong? When did I stop being enough for her? But deep down, I already knew the truth. And no matter how much I loved her, I couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend everything was okay. Then came the one night that changed everything. I had been waiting up for hours, staring at the clock, listening to the sound of cars passing by outside. It wasn't the first time Sophie had come home late, but something about this night felt different. When I finally heard the door open, I exhaled, trying to steady my emotions. I didn't want to argue. I was too exhausted for another fight. She walked in, stumbling slightly. The smell of alcohol hit me before I even turned to look at her. She barely acknowledged me, tossing her bag onto the couch and kicking off her shoes. I swallowed my frustration and asked, "Sophie, do you even realize what you're doing? This isn't just about coming home late. You're pushing me away. I've been patient, but you're not acting like a married woman anymore." She rolled her eyes like I had just told her the most ridiculous thing in the world. Then, with a lazy smirk, she laughed. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You think I need you? Do you really think you're that special? Plenty of men want me. If you leave, I'll replace you the next day." I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't let it show. She wasn't done. She straightened up. "I'm done living by your rules. I'm done living by anyone's rules. This is my life, and neither you nor society is going to tell me how to live it. I'm in my baby girl era now, Lucas. Either deal with it or don't." That was it. That was the moment I knew. I had lost her. Or maybe she had lost me. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't beg her to see reason. What was the point? She had already decided who she wanted to be, and it wasn't the woman I had married. So I did the only thing left to do. I'll let her have the life she wanted. And I'll walk away. The next morning, I searched and made a call to the best divorce lawyer in town. I wasn't interested in dragging things out or making her life difficult. I just wanted a clean break. The legal process moved fast. Since we had no kids, and I wasn't about to fight over furniture or shared bank accounts, things were settled without much back and forth. I didn't care about what was fair or unfair. I just wanted out. I didn't even show up for the final meeting. I let my lawyer handle everything. And once the papers were signed, I did exactly what I had promised myself I would do. I disappeared. No calls. No texts. No long emotional messages. I was just gone. At first, she didn't seem to care. If anything, she looked relieved. She convinced herself that this was her fresh start, her chance to finally be free. I saw glimpses of it on social media. Pictures of her out with friends, drinks in hand, living it up like she was celebrating a victory. Her posts were filled with captions about new beginnings and knowing your worth. And for a while it seemed like she had moved on without a second thought. She jumped back into the dating scene almost immediately. And, of course, there were plenty of men eager to entertain her. But something was different now. She wasn't the prize she thought she was. Sure, she got attention, but it wasn't the kind she had expected. The men who chased after her weren't looking for commitment, just a good time. And the ones who were ready for something serious? They weren't the kind of men she wanted. I wasn't there to witness it firsthand, but I heard things. She cycled through relationships quickly, jumping from one guy to the next, never finding anything that lasted. One by one, they all left. The attention she had once thrived on started feeling hollow and meaningless. Slowly, the confidence she once flaunted began to crack. For the first time, she was alone. Not by choice, not for self-discovery, but because she had pushed away the one person who actually loved her. How did I know? Remember, we had mutual friends who still speak with her. And as for me, I wasn't looking back. After the divorce, I had a choice to make. I could have jumped into another relationship, looking for someone to fill the void. I could have drowned myself in meaningless flings, distractions, and temporary highs. But I knew that wasn't the answer, and that wasn't what I wanted. I had spent too long losing myself in a marriage where I was unseen. Now it was time to choose me. So I did. I threw myself into my business as a way to rebuild. I put my energy into growing what I had built from the ground up, making it stronger, and expanding it further. Work wasn't just work anymore. It was a reminder that I was capable and that I had a purpose outside of being someone's husband. Slowly, I started seeing results. My business took off in ways I never imagined, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my life again. At the same time, I focused on my health, both physically and mentally. I hit the gym because I wanted to feel strong again. I started paying attention to eating better, sleeping better, and taking care of myself in ways I had neglected for years. I accepted that some people will never appreciate you, no matter how much you give. I refused to settle for anything that didn't add real value to my life. I wasn't going to let loneliness trick me into running back to what was familiar, or into chasing relationships that weren't right for me. I learned to be alone without feeling lonely. I became comfortable in my own company, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Slowly, I flourished. And that, more than anything, was my greatest win. It had been years since I last saw Sophie. That day, I was just running errands, picking up a few things from a department store when it happened. I turned a corner, and there she was. Sophie, standing just a few feet away, holding a shopping bag, staring at me like she had seen a ghost. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. She still looked good. She always took care of her appearance. Her eyes scanned me. "Lucas." She finally spoke, her voice unsure, almost hesitant. I nodded, offering a polite smile. "Hey, Sophie. Been a while." She let out a nervous laugh, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Wow, you look different." I shrugged. "Yeah, life's been good." She started asking questions, trying to keep the conversation going. "How have you been? What have you been up to?" I answered casually, never giving her too much, keeping it light. I wasn't rude, but I also wasn't giving her what she was hoping for. I had no idea what was going through her mind. After a few more minutes of small talk, she smiled unsure. "Maybe we could catch up sometime?" I smiled back. "Yeah, maybe." I knew we wouldn't, because of that chapter of my life was closed. Days after that encounter, she reached out. It started with a simple message, one of those casual, "Hey, it was nice seeing you the other day" texts. I hesitated before responding, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Against my better judgment, I replied. From there, the conversation slowly picked up. Nothing deep, nothing emotional, just small talk. Catching up. Nostalgia creeping in, filling the gaps where anger and resentment used to be. Over the next few weeks, we texted here and there. She would send a random message about something that reminded her of me. And despite everything, I couldn't deny it. The feelings were still there. You don't just stop loving someone overnight. But what I came to realize was that love alone wasn't enough. The trust? That was long gone. One evening, she suggested we meet up. Just dinner, just to talk. A part of me wanted to say yes. I won't lie, I was tempted. But then I stopped and asked myself a question I had been avoiding this entire time. What was the point? What was I really looking for? An apology? Some kind of explanation? A chance to fix what was already broken beyond repair? No. Deep down I knew the truth. I didn't need her to give me closure. I needed to give it to myself. So I declined. Not with bitterness, not with anger, just a simple "I don't think that's a good idea." It took me a long time to admit that I was broken. I didn't want to admit it, but Sophie had done more damage to me than I realized. Not just because she left, but because of the way she made me feel before she did. Unworthy. Replaceable. Like I was never enough. At first, I told myself I was fine. I focused on my business, worked out more, and surrounded myself with friends. But no matter how much I tried to distract myself, there was this weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. I knew if I didn't deal with it, it would follow me into every part of my life. So, I did something I never thought I would do. I went to therapy. I won't lie, at first it felt weird. Sitting there, talking to a stranger about everything I had spent years burying. But week after week, I started seeing things more clearly. I wasn't stupid for loving Sophie. I wasn't weak for trying to save my marriage. I was just a man who gave his heart to the wrong person. And that wasn't my failure, it was just a lesson I needed to learn. Healing wasn't instant. It wasn't about waking up one day and suddenly feeling free. It was about the small moments. So, I burned every bridge with Sophie. No more texts, no more small talk, no more what-ifs. And I decided that my story with her was over. Before I deleted her number, I sent one last message. Not out of anger, not out of spite. Just the truth. I wish you the best. Looking back, I used to think the only way to move on from someone who hurt you was to get even, to prove to them that they lost something valuable. But I realized something along the way. Revenge is a waste of energy. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply moving on, becoming the best version of yourself, and letting them watch from a distance. And that, my friends, is exactly what I did. That's it for today's story. Let us know what you think in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation like this? How did you handle it? If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories. Until next time, take care. Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Tyler, and what I'm about to share with you is something that completely changed my life. 2 years ago, I was in love with a woman I thought was my future. I gave her my time, my loyalty, and my heart. But in just one night, everything I believed about our relationship came crashing down. Back then, I believed that if you cared about someone and treated them right, they'd do the same for you. But life has a way of proving you wrong. The woman I loved made a choice that showed me exactly where I stood in her life, and it wasn't where I thought. So stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why some people don't deserve second chances. I've always been the quiet type that values deep connections. Jenny, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. She had this energy that could light up a room. People were drawn to her. I liked that about her. I liked how different we were. I thought it balanced us out. She was the spark, and I was the steady flame. I had chances to leave our city, better job offers, opportunities that would have set me up in ways I couldn't even imagine. But I stayed. For her. Because I loved her, and I thought we were working toward the same future. I pictured a life together, a home, maybe even kids down the road. I was all in, and I really believe she was, too. But I was wrong. That realization hit me hard on what should have been one of the happiest nights of my life. It was Jenny's birthday, our relationship anniversary, and the night I planned to propose. I had everything set, reservations at a nice restaurant, a small, private table. I had rehearsed the words in my head 1,000 times, imagining the way she'd smile, maybe even cry a little, as I slid the ring onto her finger. I was nervous but excited. This was supposed to be our moment. At the last minute, she decided to ditch our anniversary dinner for a wild party with her high-status friends. No discussion, no apology, just a casual, "Oh, I'll make it up to you. We can do dinner another day." When I called her, hoping maybe she'd change her mind, she brushed me off like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's just dinner." But it wasn't just dinner. She had no idea what she was throwing away. No idea that I had a ring in my pocket, ready to give her everything. And in that moment, something inside me broke. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how someone I loved so much could make me feel so invisible. I had given her my heart, and she had chosen a party over me. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. I had cried myself to sleep the night before, but I still held onto some small, ridiculous hope that Jenny would realize what she had done and try to make things right. Maybe she'd call or text something. But the hours passed, and nothing came. I checked my phone a few times. By the time the sun started setting, it was clear. If she cared, she would have reached out. If she had even an ounce of regret, she would have said something. But she didn't. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't going to sit around waiting for a woman who clearly didn't value me. So I made the decision right then, and there, I was done. I went through my phone, found her number, and deleted it. Then I blocked her on every social media platform. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, gone. I erased every picture, every message thread, every trace of her. If she didn't want to make me a priority, then she wasn't going to have access to me anymore. I wasn't going to leave the door open for her to waltz back in whenever she felt like it. With Jenny out of the picture, I had to face another truth. I had nothing keeping me here anymore. I had passed up job opportunities in the past because I didn't want to leave her behind. But now, staying felt pointless. There was nothing left for me in this city. I wasn't even going to wait for another offer to come through. I told myself, when I get there, opportunities will come. I wasn't going to let life happen to me anymore. I was going to take control. That night, I sat my parents down and told them everything. I told them how I had planned to propose, how I had spent weeks imagining our future. Then I told them how she threw it all away for one night of partying. My mom looked heartbroken for me. My dad didn't say much, but I could tell he was disappointed, not in me, but in the way Jenny had treated me. They supported my decision to leave. They knew I needed a fresh start. But when they asked where I was going, I kept the details vague. I didn't want Jenny showing up later with some half-hearted apology trying to pull me back in. I needed a clean break. The next morning, I packed my bags and walked out of that house with no intention of ever looking back. I reached out to an old schoolmate, Daniel, who had moved to a bigger city a few years ago. We hadn't talked in a long time, but when I explained my situation, he didn't hesitate to help. "Come crash at my place for a while," he said. And just like that, I had a place to land. When I got there, I barely spoke about what had happened. Daniel could tell I was going through something, but he didn't press. I was grateful for that. The last thing I wanted was to rehash the past. I just wanted to drown myself in work and forget everything. And that's exactly what I did. I took on every job I could find, day shifts, night shifts, anything that kept me busy. I wasn't picky. I worked in warehouses, handled deliveries, even did some freelance tech work when I could. My body was exhausted, but my mind was too numb to care. I refused to check social media, refused to wonder what Jenny was doing, refused to even say her name in my own head. Relationships? Forget it. I didn't want to hear about love, dating, or anything that involved emotions. My only focus was me, making money, securing my future, and becoming someone who would never be left behind again. I had always been responsible with money, but now I took it to the next level. Every dollar I made was split into two categories: investing in myself and investing in the stock market. I learned everything I could about finances, watched videos, read books, and studied how to make my money work for me. Slowly, I started seeing the results. After a few months, I was able to move into my own place. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small apartment, but it was mine. No more crashing on couches. 2 years went by in a blur. The pain that had once consumed me no longer controlled my life. Looking back, I realized Jenny did me a favor. If she hadn't walked away that night, I might have never walked toward the life I was meant to have. One day at the mall, I wasn't expecting to run into anyone from my past, let alone someone connected to Jenny. I was just there to pick up a few things. But as I turned a corner near the food court, I saw a familiar face. At first, it didn't register, but then it hit me. It was Eve, Jenny's old friend. My first instinct was hesitation. The last time I had heard her name was when Jenny accused her of trying to steal me. Back then, I trusted Jenny, so I naturally believed she was telling the truth. I even remembered thinking Eve was a snake for trying to mess with our relationship. But standing there, looking at her now, she didn't seem like someone who had done anything wrong. She seemed friendly. And from the way she reacted when she saw me, I could tell she wasn't holding onto any bad blood. She smiled a little surprised and said, "Wow, Tyler, I never expected to see you here." I nodded, still trying to process the situation. "Yeah, it's been a while." There was this moment of silence where we both weren't sure how to act. We had never really spoken much back then because, well, Jenny had made sure of that. But after a brief, awkward pause, Eve broke the tension by asking if I had time to catch up over coffee. I figured, why not? At worst, it would be an uncomfortable conversation, but at best, I might get some clarity on things I never really questioned before. So we sat down at a small cafe in the mall, and that's when I learned the truth. Eve didn't dance around it. She came right out and said, "I always felt like Jenny didn't appreciate you. That's why we stopped being friends." That threw me off because that was not the story Jenny had told me. When I asked Eve what she meant, she explained everything. Apparently, she had confronted Jenny about how she treated me, how she was selfish in our relationship, how she didn't seem to value my time or my feelings. But instead of listening, Jenny flipped the situation and accused Eve of trying to take me for herself. That accusation spread through their friend group, and before Eve could defend herself, Jenny had already turned everyone against her. The more Eve talked, the more everything started clicking in my head. It all made sense. Jenny had lied to me. She had painted herself as the victim and made Eve look like the bad guy. And I had fallen for it blindly. For a long time, I had convinced myself that I knew Jenny, that I understood who she was. But now, sitting there listening to Eve, I realized how much of Jenny's version of reality I had accepted without question. It wasn't just about what she had done to me on that anniversary night. It was a pattern. Jenny had a way of making herself look innocent while throwing other people under the bus. And the worst part? I had played right into it. I told Eve everything. How I had planned to propose, how Jenny ruined it, how I left everything behind and started over. She listened without interrupting, just nodding like she actually cared. It felt good to finally say it out loud, especially to someone who actually understood what kind of person Jenny was. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel stupid for believing the lies. I just felt relieved that I finally knew the truth. After that day, Eve and I stayed in touch. There was something easy about talking to her, probably because she had already been burned by Jenny too, or because she didn't expect anything from me. We started hanging out more, grabbing lunch, watching movies, just enjoying each other's company. At first, I was still guarded. The idea of starting something new, of trusting someone again, made me hesitant. But Eve never pushed. She never asked for more than I was ready to give. And because of that, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could just breathe. One Sunday afternoon, I had just finished cleaning up the apartment, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Eve had texted me earlier, saying she was on her way over with something she had cooked. I smiled at the thought. Over time, she had made it a habit to bring me homemade meals, and honestly, I didn't mind. It was a simple gesture, but it meant a lot. So, when the doorbell rang, I assumed it was her. Without thinking twice, I walked over and pulled the door open, expecting to see her standing there with a warm smile and a food container in her hands. But it wasn't Eve. It was Jenny. For a second, my mind refused to process it. She didn't look different. She stood there, hesitant, unsure of herself. The first words out of my mouth weren't a greeting or even an insult. I just stared at her and asked, "How did you find me here?" She opened her mouth as if to explain, but I didn't let her. I had no interest in whatever story she had come up with. I shook my head and said, "Leave." Just like that. Because she had no business being here, and I wanted her gone. She broke down right there in front of me, sobbing so hard she could barely get her words out. She clutched her chest like the pain was physically hurting her. Through her broken cries, she begged for forgiveness, saying she had made the biggest mistake of her life. She admitted, finally, that she had treated me horribly, that she had taken me for granted, that she should have never let me go. She said she had been completely lost without me, that after I disappeared, nothing in her life had gone right. She looked up at me with swollen, tear-filled eyes, searching for any sign of sympathy on my face. But I felt nothing. I stood there, staring at Jenny, who was still crying. I had imagined this moment so many times, what I would say if she ever came back. But now that it was happening, I felt nothing but an overwhelming sense of indifference. Just as I opened my mouth to tell her to leave again, the sound of approaching footsteps made both of us turn. Eve was walking up the steps, carrying a container of homemade food, her smile warm and effortless. She looked radiant, her presence a sharp contrast to the mess standing in front of me. Jenny's breath hitched the moment she saw her. Her teary, bloodshot eyes widened in disbelief, as if her brain couldn't process what she was seeing. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head as she pieced everything together. I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward, pulled Eve into a hug, and kissed her on the cheek. "Welcome," I said, my voice steady. Eve smiled, completely unfazed by Jenny's presence. That was the thing about Eve. She never had to try too hard. And that was enough. Jenny took a shaky step back. Her face twisted into something between heartbreak and humiliation. Without another word, I took Eve's hand, stepped inside, and shut the door behind us, locking it. I didn't look through the peephole to see if Jenny was still there. I didn't wait to hear her footsteps fade. I was done. She had already made her choice 2 years ago. Now it was my turn. Looking back now, I realized that pain can be the best teacher. At the time, when Jenny chose that party over me, it felt like my world had collapsed. I questioned everything, whether I had been too clingy, too demanding, or if I just wasn't enough for her. But the truth? I was never the problem. She just didn't value me the way I valued her. And that night, as I lay in bed with my chest feeling like it was caving in, I had no idea that the best decision I would ever make was just around the corner. Walking away from her was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also the thing that saved me. And life has a funny way of balancing things out, doesn't it? After I moved, I focused on myself. I worked hard, invested wisely, and built a life I could be proud of. Meanwhile, I heard Jenny jumped into another relationship almost immediately. And not just any relationship. She went for a guy who fit her lifestyle perfectly. A party guy. The type who lived for the fast life, just like she did. At first, I bet it seemed like she had it all. The fun, the excitement, the thrill of being with someone who kept the party going. But then, reality hit. That guy wasn't just a party animal. He was an abusive one. He drank too much, and when he did, he turned violent. Their relationship was nothing but chaos. Yelling, fights, drama. It was a complete mess. Eventually, it all fell apart. And when there was nothing left, that's when she showed up at my door, crying, begging for forgiveness. But by then, it was too late. I had moved on. I had grown. And most importantly, I had learned a crucial lesson. Real love doesn't need to be forced. If someone wants to be in your life, they'll act like it. They won't treat you like an afterthought or make you compete for their attention. So now, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Was I too harsh, or did she deserve it? If someone betrayed your trust like that and then came crawling back, what would you do? Have you ever been taken for granted, only for them to realize your worth when it was too late? Let me know in the comments, because I know a lot of you have been through something like this. Let's talk about it.